In today's video, we're going to talk about how to calculate starting cost per lead, cost per click, and estimated ROI or overall income on a campaign you actually can be successful with your ads. The reason why I'm making this video is because the average person starting out with Google Ads that wants to get rich doing it, or Facebook ads, or any other online ads, they think it's setting up an ads account for themselves and then wait for their bank account to explode. And if it explodes, everything's working great. If it doesn't, it's not working, shut it off. And that is basically the number one mistake that people make when they're starting out, because this game of running ads is really just, it runs off of small numbers, small margins. Split between profitability and not profitability is there's a very fine line there. And if you don't know what your numbers need to be going into a campaign, you can either run your campaign at a loss way longer than you need to, or you give up on a campaign that would have went on to make you millions of dollars. So with that said, at our agency, every single client that I interact with that we're going to offer our contingency PPC services to are going to go through the ringer with our estimates and figure out what our cost per lead needs to be, our ROI, our cost per click, all of that to be profitable at a baseline level, because without it, you're going to have to do it at some point down the line anyway, and it's better to do it up front. And the whole point of running ads is to be able to run a big ad account. You start small, you hit your numbers that you need, and then you scale up. This is going to tell you how to hit your numbers, what numbers you need to hit, and then so you can get to that level where you're scaling your account. So, and then, a lot of you guys also don't understand what a cost per click is going to be, let alone what a lead's going to be, let alone what you're going to make from your campaigns. I'll go over how to estimate all of that in today's video. Before I get into the content though, if you do not know who I am Corey Ziman, owner of Guaranteed PPC, an online advertising agency that specializes in guaranteeing results for their clients. That is, we do not charge our clients management fees until we can get them a certain minimum lift in their profitability up front, in excess of what our management fee is, which should tell you something about the quality of the information you're receiving on today's video. So with that said, getting into the content now, what I've done is I broke out the calculations and numbers and all that into three basic distinct categories that you have to be able to estimate up front to know what you specifically need out of your campaign to be profitable, so you can get to the point where you can spend more money on ads and know it's making you more and more money. The first of which is cost per click. Secondly is cost per lead. Third is ROI, or ROAS, as they call it in the marketing industry. So with that said, to figure out what you need to be profitable with your campaign before you get into it, so you know where you can start spending more on ads and not run out of money doing it, is the good old cost per click. If you're talking about Google ads here, and all this information applies to any place you're running ads online, Facebook, X ads, linked ads, whatever, you still got to start with your cost per click to figure out what you need as far as numbers go. Well, Google has the Google Keyword Planner, and with Google Keyword Planner, they tell you what your cost per click should be starting out. And what you do is you find buying terms. So if you're selling pottery equipment, you're going to find 10 keywords that are the most obvious keywords to target that are buying terms. Buy pottery equipment for sale, XJR pottery equipment for sale, whatever. And what Google shows you with the Google Keyword Planner, on the high end, that is going to be where you start out with your ads. You're going to take 10 keywords at the high end, add them together, divide it by 10, and that's going to be what your cost per click starting out is going to be. Your cost per click is going to go closer to the low end of the range if you do everything right and you follow all the strategies I talk about on this channel. Eventually, 6 months down the road or so, but when you're starting out, that's what it's going to be and what you should expect it to be. Once you know what your cost per click is going to be, then you can start getting into your calculations. Now, if you're talking about Facebook ads, it's hard to tell what your cost per click is going to be. And for the most part, you're going to kind of guesstimate it. $1 a click, $2 a click, and same thing with the other platforms. Just Google the average cost per click on X or whatever, and then go that route with it. But if you know your cost per click, then what you could do is you could take that times your conversion rate or expected conversion rate on your clicks. That is the amount of clicks that are going to turn into a lead or a sale, depending if you're doing lead generation or e-commerce. And then you'll know pretty much what you can do, what you'll do in terms of, or starting to figure out, I should say, your ads being profitable and at what specific point. I have a case study here. We had a manufactured home seller that I'm going to go through their specific numbers. When I'm done explaining how to run these calculations for your business to know where you are profitable at, your break-even point, so you can do this for yourself. So ultimately with that though, cost per lead itself, calculating this, if you're generating leads, is going to be predicated on figuring out what your cost per click is. Now that you have it, you can take that times the number of clicks that you're going to have, and your clicks that you're going to have, you simply divide your ad budget by the cost per click, and that gives you the number of clicks that you're going to have itself. And your starting ad budget, for most people, if you're under $30 a click in a market like that, should be about $3,000 a month. If it could be less, but it's just going to take way long to figure out or to hit profitability. And if you're over $30 a click in a market like that, you should be more like $10,000 a month if you don't want it to take forever to hit profitability. And so you take your clicks, and then you take that times your presumed conversion rate. That is clicks that turn into a lead, a phone call, form fill, and ultimately with the conversion rate. To figure this out, so you can calculate what your return needs to be and how to get a return up front, you're going in markets where people are more sure about themselves, about making a purchase, like a market like the towing services market. People that search for towing services, they basically know that when they Google it, they're going to buy from somebody. It's not a matter of if, it's just who, and they're probably not going to call that many people either. And so in towing services, we've gotten conversion rates of 60% with our campaigns that we know how to set up for that market. On the flip side, we've had markets where we sell super high-end products that are more like fringe, and we're going to get conversion rates of 0.5%. So you're going to end up somewhere in that range of 0.5% to 60%, which doesn't tell you a lot. But when you take what I'm telling you here, which is what you presume how many people that are searching on Google are actually going to buy, you can kind of, on a basic level, figure out where you should be on the spectrum itself, okay? When you're selling high-dollar products, just to be clear here, we're talking about generating leads and using those leads to sell to them, okay? So, and then with that said, you could take your cost per click times your clicks that you're going to have with your starting budget times your conversion rate, and you can find your cost per lead. Once you know your cost per lead, you can calculate what your ROI is going to be and what the number of leads you need to be at a base level of profitability with your ads up front, so you know exactly what you need to optimize for. I do want to mention though up front here as well, when you start out with Google Ads, you're going to be treated like a second-class citizen. You're going to be given all the worst quality traffic that Google knows the least likely to convert, and I mean on a keyword level. So if you're targeting pottery wheels for sale, they split that keyword's traffic up thousands of times. And on a user level, who's searching for that specific keyword? When you start out and Google doesn't know anything about you, and or you're a poor advertiser, you don't measure up against the other advertisers advertising for that keyword, then Google, when they see somebody that's not likely to convert come through Google searching for that keyword you're bidding on, they're going to have your ad show as opposed to their favorite advertiser that helps their users the most and that helps people want to click on ads in the future a lot more because they got a good experience out of ads. So with that said, your conversion rate is going to be from day one compared to like 6 months in, 9 months in, is going to be 300 to 600% higher than what you start out day one. So if you start out and you say, oh, my conversion rate's nowhere where it needs to be to get the cost per lead I need to be profitable, just know it will certainly change if you follow the instructions I've talked about on this channel about how to beat your competition in terms of click-through rate, in terms of conversion rate, which is what most of the ad rank system's based upon. And you could end up changing the situation that you're in and go from not profitable to profitable. And generally speaking, most markets, you're going to have to run your ads for a while to get your ad rank up and have the algorithm look at your ads in order to hit profitability and get the type of traffic you need to get the conversion rates you need to be profitable itself. In other platforms, that's also going to be the case, whether you're talking about Facebook or whatever. There's a ramp up period where the conversion rate gets better as you go. Not nearly as much as Google, but it's still there. So once you know what your cost per lead is, now you can calculate what your ROI would be at a certain cost per lead and know if a certain cost per lead is profitable or not. If you're talking about doing lead generation, you take your leads that you're going to get, which if you know what your cost per lead is going to be, you could take your cost per lead divided by your budget, and you can know what the number of leads you're going to get. And then you could take your closing rate, which if you don't know what your closing rate is, you ask your salespeople, or you look at all the leads you had in the last year divided by the total unique customers you've had, and that'll tell you your closing rate right from that. So it's not that hard to figure out. Times your lifetime value of a customer, which if you don't know what a customer's worth to you, you take all the customers you've ever sold to in your accounting system, total unique records, divided by total revenue ever generated, and that gives you your lifetime value per customer. You take those three numbers, add it, multiplied together, divided by your ad spend, and that tells you what your ROI is, a certain number of leads itself. And if your ROI is on a positive number, you need to get more leads and raise this leads part of the equation until your number is positive, and then now you know how many leads you need, therefore what cost per lead you need to be profitable with your starting campaigns before you could scale up your ad spend. If you're talking about e-commerce, the formula is more simple. You take the number of transactions you have, which you can easily find out number of transactions by taking the total clicks itself times your conversion rate, and you take that times your lifetime value of a customer again, which is total in your accounting system, total revenue ever generated by total unique customers, and you have your lifetime value, and then take transactions times lifetime value divided by ad spend. Now you know if you're profitable or not based upon a certain number of transactions at your average lifetime value of a transaction. Make sense? So that will tell you if you're making enough sales or having enough leads to likely be profitable and what to specifically shoot for at the beginning of your running your campaigns on whatever platform you're on. With that said, I have a case study here where we had a manufactured home seller where we started out and we basically knew because of the thin margins of the business that we needed close to a 20-to-1 return on our ad spend. That is $20 in ad spend for every dollar spent in ads. However, when you're setting up these campaigns for lead and doing lead generation like this, you're going to do yourself a huge favor trying to estimate what your cost per lead needs to be, because the time it takes, particularly in that market, for the time a lead comes in to the time the sale occurs is an average of a year later. So you're going to be way off base if you wait for revenue to come in to judge if your campaign's working, whereas you could have just estimated what the cost per lead needs to be and know if you're on track fairly quickly. Not right away, because it still takes time to get the cost per lead down, but at least you'd be in a much better position. So with that said, what we did with this client is we had our budget of around $3K a month, and we overspent. We spent closer to $4.8K itself for a particular month where we did our analysis to see if we're on track and are we likely to be profitable with what we got at the moment. Okay? With that said, we were paying an average of $1.86 a click and 1.5% conversion rate from click to lead. That is form fill or phone call. All right? That gave us a total of 2,581 clicks for our $4.8 thousand, and we had 39 total leads that we generated, which 39 leads sounds great, right? That's a lot of leads, potential home buyers. However, do we know that's profitable or not? Do we need more leads than that before we could scale? Or if we could maintain this level of cost per lead and leads that we're generating from this kind of budget at 4.8K a month already? And the answer to that is really easy to figure out. With that said, our 39 leads, we found out by looking at our sales department data that we're closing just under 1% of the leads into a sale. 0.9% of the leads turn into a sale on average. From there, our average lifetime value of a customer is $176,000, and we have a 5% margin on the sales that we're generating in terms of what we keep after all expenses, which is a very small margin business. With all that said, when we took the revenue that we generated, and so after subtracting out 95% for overhead, and we subtracted out the ad spend itself, so after all that said, with $176K in lifetime value of a customer and generating right around 0.35 transactions per month, or if you will, what it equals out to with all those leads at the average closing rate that we had, and a 5% margin, we have a $3,088 profit, assuming ad spend is not taken out of the equation. If ad spend's taken out of the equation, we're at a negative ROI. We're at a 64% ROI, which is a negative ROI. So, in other words, on our 39 leads, which with a 0.9% closing rate, we were generating 35 transactions at 0.35 transactions here, and their average lifetime value of a customer of $176,000 and a 5% margin that we're keeping from our sales amount. We're not making enough money to justify and offset the amount of ad spend that we have. We need to get more than 39 leads, either before you start running your ads, lifetime value of a lead is going to be, or a customer is going to be, and you know what your closing rates are going to be, and or after you start, you actually run these numbers again like we did with the manufacturer home builder. You can look at the closing rate of leads and your lifetime value of a customer from other customers you ever had before you run this campaign. You run the campaign, it's going to end up being, you're going to have a slightly different lifetime value of a customer and closing rate of leads that you're going to get from that campaign. That's just how it works. So ultimately what you're going to do is you're going to do your estimates, and then you're going to run your numbers again after you run your campaign and see if they match up to your estimates. And if they are, then that's the time when you can start spending more money on ad spend. Generally speaking, most people starting out advertising, they don't look at their numbers on this level. They don't understand that in order to make money, you have to really know what your numbers are. And then you also have to set up tracking systems to verify your numbers are right as you get into it. Okay, you first are going to know, okay, our cost per lead is pretty much where we calculated it needs to be. Okay, let's look at our leads at the lead level. Let's make sure the revenue is coming in correctly. And therefore, our lifetime value of a customer is what we thought it would be. And our closing rates what we thought it would be. Okay, everything is good. We'll start spending more money. With the manufactured home builder, we actually, because the time it takes to get a lead and to the time people buy, we had to work on making that roughly $3K a month, which was our actual monthly budget and what it was supposed to be, until we got closer to 70 leads a month. And then once we could start spending more. But even then, it takes time for the money to come back in from the leads we got. So once we hit our target cost per lead that we needed, then we started to double our budget once a year and then started scaling up the company appropriately. That's the position you want to be in, because it's so much work to get a starting ad budget of $3K a month or whatever you're spending starting out, what you could afford to lose at the beginning, to build up a campaign and get data, or what you need to do, what you need to do less of, what you need to do more of, that it's not worth doing unless you're going to actually have the end goal of spending, let's say, 30 grand a month when you start out, because it takes the same amount of effort almost to manage a 3K a month account than as it is a 30K a month account. It's going to still take you the hundreds of hours to really perfect a 3K a month account. That if the goal is to get to 30K a month, you'll never make sense of the work it takes to get the 3K working. Because the average person is going to say, well, my budget's 3K a month and that's it. That's my budget. And they will spend very little time optimizing that, meaning it won't be profitable. And they'll end up just wasting their money, because this isn't like, if we're close, it's good enough. Either it makes money or it doesn't. And they don't measure anything and stick their head in the ground and pretend that it does, because they don't want to hire an expert to really analyze things or do it themselves. And they don't get anywhere. Whereas you are going to understand, you could calculate these numbers and at least have a general idea of what your cost per lead or sale, your conversion rates need to be up front to be profitable. Optimize for that goal. Double check your assumptions once you hit that goal, and then start raising your ad budget 10% a month or so and start scaling your account. Lifetime value of a customer, by the way, when you're talking about e-commerce, a lot of companies don't value a customer for what it's worth. They just look at their, let's say, their Google Ads account and the return it says they're getting in their Google Ads account, and they think that's the return. Google Ads doesn't count every conversion because of the cookie data, how cookies work. Not every purchase gets tracked. The average amount that Google e-commerce account's going to under-track conversions is by roughly a third. And then, of course, the customers, when you get a customer, you get other side benefits. You got referrals. You got people buying more than once. You also, when you spend more money on ads, you get more organic rankings. It goes up with your ad spend going up. You got that as well. You got referrals. So all of this contributes to the actual return you're getting from your ad spend. That's why you want to look at total revenue in your company divided by total customers to get your lifetime value of a customer, because you'll get a better read on what you really need here at the end of the day. And then on top of that, if you really want to help yourself out, when you're talking about e-commerce specifically, you want to look at coming up with a ratio of total sales in your company to total ad spend that you know is viable to scale at. And then once you get to that certain ratio, you start spending more money all the time. You up your budget 10%, look for the sales to go up 10%. Up your budget another 10%, wait for your sales to go up another 10%. Why? Because there's other factors that contribute to the value you're getting out of the ad spend other than what the ad account's able to explicitly tie to performance of the ads. So with all that said, this particular company, we found out that we could not scale at the given moment. We had to keep optimizing that starting ad spend until we were able to get to closer to 70 leads. And then we, basically were starting to scale. In your particular case, if you're in a competitive market, it's probably going to be a process. You need a process of going through and aging your campaigns to get the conversion rates up because of that. You need some time to get the cost per click down. When your ad rank goes up on Google, your cost per click is going to come down, and it's going to be closer to the low end of the range that Google Keyword Planner tells you specifically, and that contributes to getting more leads for your budget if you're talking about lead generation, or just bringing down your cost per transaction if you're talking about e-commerce itself. And with that said, what you're doing at the beginning, you're taking money, you come up with a budget you can afford to lose every month to invest in this ad engine, this long-term investment that you have. It may take 3 months, it may take 6 months for it to work, whatever, it doesn't matter. Because what you make on every month on year 7 is going to pay for what you lost in the beginning to get it going, so it's okay. And that's how you have to look at it to get into it. People that try it for a few months and quit expect that they make money right away. It usually doesn't work that way. So you invest what you can afford to lose up front, whether it's $1,000 a month, $3,000 a month, whatever. You look at the data about what worked and what didn't work, and you start making revisions. And eventually, if you optimize it like your life depended on it, that ad spend having to work or you were going to die physically, you'll figure out how to get that ad spend to produce the ROI or cost per lead that you need, bottom line. And then you'll start scaling. If you've got the right strategies in place, right ads, right landing pages, right website that I talk about on this channel, how to produce, it's just a matter of when is it going to happen. Is it going to happen the 2nd month, the 3rd month, the 4th month, the 5th? But it'll happen. And if you keep working on it and work on it harder than your competitors, you're going to be favored by the ad platforms because they just want to run the ads that consumers like the most. And you just got to show them those ads, show them those landing pages, and it'll happen for you. And you just got to break in the ads. Once the algorithm sees it, they'll reward you. You're going to have the cost per lead or ROI that you need. And you could set up your tracking systems to track what your cost per lead is going to be, and so on and so forth. And everything you would basically track to be able to find out these numbers for yourself. If you're using a CRM system, you can literally tag every customer that comes in your business as coming from Google Ads and literally have a rolling ROI. Total sales from Google Ads I've ever had divided by total ad spend I've ever spent, and you'll know what your ROI is at any given point. So you also got that. Ultimately, though, the return on investment gets easier and easier to get the more data you have in your ad accounts. The more you've figured out what doesn't work, the easier it gets to do what does work. The average person thinks, I should be able to get into it right away and it should work right away, or Google or whatever is a scam. And that's why 90% of people don't make money with ads ever. So either are going to get with the program, which is this game of running ads is a game of inches, and understanding your numbers and tracking things very, very well so you can make revisions and so you can see one keyword versus another keyword versus one ad versus another ad in your account, what's working, what's driving the sales, or leads at a certain cost that you need, or you don't. And somebody else that's ambitious enough to do that is going to get it done. For that matter, to know what to do, to have because you still, again, have to have the strategy as good or better than your competition to make all this work eventually. All that information you need is on this channel for free for you to be able to use. I also got a great blog on my site that has tons of other information on it about the strategies we're using to literally guarantee results for our clients that you can also check out as well, and that has everything you would need to get the information you need to do it right. You also could reach out to our agency and we'll guarantee your results. We'll literally do all the work for you and only take a fee once it's profitable already. We don't take on just any client that has just any offer, but we take on quite a few, and you should at least reach out to us if you want to do this for yourself. We can help you not only calculate these numbers, but actually give you the strategy that's going to be able to deliver those numbers and then take the fee once we've already delivered those numbers up front at least. Interested in that, you can also reach out to me at guaranteedppc.com and we can talk about that. As a side though as well, sometimes you're really close to where you need to be, and really what you need is just a little bit of guidance to figure out where the bottleneck is. And it's hard to tell for somebody who doesn't have tons and tons of experience, whether it's the pricing that you have or your pictures on your website or is your ads. I'm really good at identifying where the bottleneck is in your system that's stopping you from being able to scale your ads or get to a certain ROI or cost per lead that you need, that you've calculated up front using this formula here. Can do a 30-minute coaching call with me, and I can figure that out in a 30-minute call, and you'll be on the road again to getting what you want done. I had start offering this a few months ago. Everybody who's reaching out to get it is very happy with the time that I'm spending with them, and they're coming back for more time. Furthermore, but in addition to that, we also have ad templates available. If we've already got you the results you're looking for in your niche market, we can literally sell you the winning ads, landing pages, campaign templates, all of it that work for your niche market already, that you copy paste into your ad account and get the same results we're getting in a different geographic area. for yourself. And if we've worked in your market, it would be silly not using it, especially if we've already got you the numbers that you need, that you've calculated front and which you don't have. So if you're interested in that, you can also reach out to me at our agency at guaranteedppc.com. We'll tell you the results we've got. And of course, you know, these templates are so polished already, you could literally start a whole nother business revolving around that template because you have the template, you know, the ads that work better than any other ads in that market. So with that said, though, I'm going to pretty much wrap it up with that. That goes over whether you're doing lead generation, whether you're doing e-commerce, what you need to do starting out to estimate what you need, you know, putting tracking systems in place, using the strategies I talk about on this channel to get your number that you know you need, evaluating your numbers when you're said and done with to make sure your assumptions were correct, and then start to scale your ads. Hopefully you got a lot of value out of this video, and I'll see you in the next one.
Remember when I said Google Ads was important during this video? Well, this video here tells you how to do it.